Imagine a land that holds the echoes of ancient civilizations, a place where the threads of political drama, vibrant culture, and rich history intertwine. This is Iran, a country often overlooked in the grand tapestry of the biblical narrative. While tales of Israel, Egypt, and Babylon dominate the scriptures, Persia, now Iran, emerges as a silent yet powerful force in God's remarkable plan. Persia was not just another ancient realm. It was a nation uniquely highlighted in Prophecies, foreseen to play a pivotal role in the destiny of God's chosen people. Its significance resonates from the era of Noah and the Great Flood, through the illustrious reigns of its kings, and into the prophetic visions that herald the end times. Throughout the biblical accounts, Persia stands as a compelling example of how God can weave the unexpected into His divine purpose. Whether it was supporting Israel's restoration after the Babylonian exile, or being intricately linked to end-time prophecies, Persia's influence is woven deeply into the biblical narrative. To truly understand this intricate connection, we must embark on a journey through the origins, ascendance, and prophetic destiny of Persia in the epic story God is telling. To understand Iran's role in this divine saga, we must travel far back to a time when the world was still emerging from the ashes of the Great Flood. Noah, the righteous man who had walked with God through the storm of destruction, became the father of a new humanity. From his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the nations of the earth would arise. The Bible tells us that Japheth's line would father many nations, and one of his sons, Madai, would give birth to a people who would one day become the Medes, and through them, Persia. Yes, from the very dawn of post-flood history, Persia's roots run deep. While the Bible speaks often of Israel, Egypt, and Babylon, it is here, in the early genealogies of Genesis, that we first see the connection between Iran and the unfolding plan of God. Persia's people, descended from Japheth through Madai, would play a pivotal role in shaping not only the course of empires, but also the destiny of God's chosen people. As centuries passed, Persia remained relatively obscure, nestled in the highlands of modern-day Iran. But this would not last. In the 6th century BC, under the leadership of Cyrus the Great, the Persians would rise to global prominence, forming one of the most powerful empires the world had ever seen. The Persians, in alliance with the Medes, carved out an empire that stretched from the Indus River to the Mediterranean Sea, from the plains of India to the deserts of North Africa. But the rise of Persia wasn't just a momentous geopolitical event. It was, in the grand design of history, a moment foretold by God. And the man at the center of this prophecy? None other than Cyrus the Great, a pagan king, an outsider to Israel's covenant with God, yet chosen by God for a mission that would change the fate of his people. Centuries before Cyrus was even born, the prophet Isaiah had spoken of him. Imagine the astonishment of Isaiah's audience when he declared that a foreign king, a ruler from a distant pagan land, would be called by name to carry out God's plan. Isaiah prophesied, "Thus says the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have grasped to subdue nations before him." Isaiah 45:1. Here, the word anointed, reserved typically for Israel's kings, was shockingly applied to a foreign ruler. Cyrus, a king from Iran, was to be God's chosen instrument. And indeed, history bore out the truth of this prophecy in the most remarkable of ways. In 586 BC, Jerusalem fell to the Babylonians. The great temple that Solomon had built was reduced to rubble, and the people of Judah were led into exile, a devastating blow to the heart of Israel. For 70 years they would remain in Babylon, their home a distant memory. Yet this exile had been foretold by the prophet Jeremiah. He had spoken of a time when the Jewish people would return to their homeland, but only after those 70 long years. Then, in a stunning reversal of fortunes, in 539 BC, Cyrus the Great marched into Babylon, not as a tyrant, but as a liberator. Without a single drop of blood spilled, Babylon, the mightiest empire of its time, fell to the Persian king. Cyrus, a man who knew not the God of Israel, issued a decree that would change everything. The Jewish people were free to return to their land, and not only that, they were commanded to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. The book of Ezra opens with these words from Cyrus himself. "The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah." Ezra 1:2. Here was a king of Persia, declaring that the God of Israel had called him to restore the nation that Babylon had destroyed. A pagan king fulfilling the prophecies of Isaiah and Jeremiah? The sheer magnitude of this moment could not be overstated. Cyrus's decree was more than a political gesture. It was the hand of God moving through history, using even a foreign power to bring about his will. The return of the exiles to Jerusalem and the rebuilding of the temple marked a turning point in the story of Israel, a moment that would forever link Persia, modern-day Iran, with the destiny of God's chosen people. But why would God use a pagan king to fulfill his divine plan? The answer lies in the sovereignty of God. Throughout the Bible, God demonstrates that his purposes transcend human understanding. He is not limited by national boundaries or religious affiliations. In fact, he often works through the most unlikely figures, whether it be Pharaoh in Egypt, Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon, or Cyrus in Persia, to accomplish his will. The rise of Persia and the reign of Cyrus were no accident. They were part of a larger tapestry, woven into the very fabric of God's plan for his people. But Persia's role in the biblical story doesn't end with Cyrus. Another great chapter in this saga unfolds during the reign of King Xerxes, known in the Bible as Ahasuerus. During this time, the Jewish people, now living within the vast Persian Empire, faced the threat of annihilation at the hands of Haman, a high-ranking official whose hatred for the Jews knew no bounds. The story of Esther is one of the most dramatic in all of Scripture. Esther, a Jewish woman who had risen to the position of queen within the Persian court, was uniquely positioned to save her people. But to do so, she would have to risk her life by approaching the king uninvited, a dangerous move in a court governed by strict laws. Encouraged by her cousin Mordecai, Esther famously declared, "If I perish, I perish." Esther 4:16. In an act of incredible courage, she revealed her Jewish identity to the king and exposed Haman's wicked plot. In a dramatic reversal, the king ordered Haman's execution and issued a decree allowing the Jews to defend themselves against their enemies. The Jewish people were saved, and to this day, the festival of Purim is celebrated to remember this great deliverance. Once again, Persia had become the setting for a moment of divine intervention. Through Esther, God preserved his people, ensuring that the line of Abraham, the line that would eventually give birth to the Messiah, remained unbroken. Persia was not just a bystander in this drama, but a key player in ensuring the survival of Israel. As we move forward through the biblical timeline, we encounter another striking aspect of Persia's role, its presence in the prophetic visions of Daniel. Daniel, a Jewish prophet who served in the courts of both Babylon and Persia, received visions that revealed the rise and fall of empires, including Persia. In one vision, Daniel saw a statue representing the succession of world empires, with its chest and arms made of silver, a symbol of the Medo-Persian Empire. In another vision, he saw a ram with two horns representing the combined power of the Medes and the Persians. These visions pointed to Persia's rise as a dominant force in the ancient world, but they also foreshadowed its eventual fall to the Greeks under Alexander the Great. Yet, even in its fall, Persia's legacy would endure. The wisdom of the Persian Magi, a group of astrologers and scholars, would play a surprising role in the New Testament. Many scholars believe that the Magi who visited the infant Jesus, bearing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, came from the region of Persia. These wise men, who followed a star to Bethlehem, were part of an ancient tradition of Persian scholars who sought divine truth in the heavens. Even here, long after the fall of the Persian Empire, the influence of Persia on the biblical story remained profound. Persia, known today as modern-day Iran, is a nation with a long and complex history, deeply intertwined with both ancient and biblical events. From the grandeur of the Persian Empire to its interactions with key biblical figures like Daniel and Esther, Persia has held a significant role in the ancient world. However, its importance in the Bible is not merely historical, it extends into the prophetic future. According to the Bible, Persia will once again emerge as a pivotal player in the events leading up to the end times. In the Bible, Persia is best known for its role during the time of the Jewish exile in Babylon. When King Cyrus the Great of Persia conquered Babylon in 539 BC, he allowed the Jewish people to return to their homeland and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. This act of kindness was foretold by the prophet Isaiah, Isaiah 45, 1-13, who called Cyrus God's anointed leader. Cyrus is one of the few non-Israelite rulers in the Bible to receive such high praise. Through the Persian rulers, the Jewish people found a level of favor and protection that allowed them to restore their religious practices and identity after a period of exile and suffering. However, Persia's role in the Bible is not confined to these past events. Its significance goes beyond the ancient world and into the realm of prophecy. The prophetic books, particularly the writings of Ezekiel, point to a future time when Persia will once again play a major role in world events. This time, its involvement will be linked to the climactic events of the end times. The book of Ezekiel contains some of the most detailed and dramatic prophetic visions in the Bible. One of these is found in chapters 38-39, where the prophet describes a coalition of nations that will rise up against Israel in the last days. This coalition is led by a mysterious figure named Gog from the land of Magog. While much speculation surrounds the identity of Gog and the location of Magog, what is clear from Ezekiel's prophecy is that several nations will align themselves with this leader in an attempt to destroy Israel. Among these nations is Persia. Ezekiel 38:5 specifically mentions Persia, along with Cush and Put, as part of this coalition. The inclusion of Persia in this future alliance suggests that Iran will play a significant role in the geopolitical landscape during the end times. This prophecy is often interpreted as a vision of the final battle or conflict that will take place in the last days, a time of great turmoil and upheaval before the ultimate return of Christ and the establishment of God's kingdom on earth. The prophecy of Ezekiel 38:39 is a subject of much debate and interpretation among biblical scholars and theologians. Some view this prophecy as symbolic, representing the perpetual struggle between good and evil, while others see it as a literal prediction of a future military conflict involving Israel and a coalition of hostile nations. Regardless of the specific interpretation, what remains significant is that Persia, or Iran, is named as one of the nations involved in this conflict. Throughout history, Iran has been a key player in the Middle East, a region that has often been the center of political, religious, and military tensions. In recent decades, Iran's role in global affairs has been increasingly prominent, particularly with its involvement in regional conflicts and its pursuit of nuclear technology. For many, these developments are seen as aligning with the biblical prophecies concerning Persia's role in the end times. The mention of Persia in Ezekiel's prophecy is a reminder that Iran's influence in the biblical narrative is far from over. While the ancient Persian Empire may have fallen, the nation of Iran continues to be a key player in modern-day geopolitical events. Its involvement in the prophetic vision of Ezekiel suggests that it will continue to be a major force in the events leading up to the end times. What remains uncertain are the specific details of the future conflict described in Ezekiel 38:39. Who exactly is Gog of Magog, and what are the motivations behind this coalition of nations? How will modern-day Iran, representing ancient Persia, fit into this scenario? These are questions that have intrigued theologians and believers for centuries. What is clear, however, is that according to the Bible, God will ultimately intervene in this great conflict, bringing it to a dramatic and decisive end. Ezekiel's prophecy, with its reference to Persia, serves as a reminder of God's sovereign plan for the nations. Throughout history, God has used nations and rulers to accomplish His purposes, often in ways that are unexpected or beyond human understanding. The inclusion of Persia in this end times prophecy is not an isolated detail, but part of a larger narrative that spans the entire Bible, from Genesis to Revelation. It points to the idea that no nation, no matter how powerful or influential, is outside the scope of God's plan. Ultimately, the prophecies of the Bible, including those concerning Persia, reflect the belief that God's justice, mercy, and sovereignty will prevail in the end. For those who hold to a literal interpretation of these prophecies, the future role of Persia is not just a matter of historical curiosity, but a significant aspect of God's unfolding plan for the world. In conclusion, Persia's prophetic role in the Bible reminds us that its influence is not confined to the past. According to Ezekiel, Persia will play a critical part in the events of the end times, standing alongside other nations in opposition to Israel. This prophetic vision serves as both a warning and a promise, pointing to the ultimate triumph of God's purposes over the forces that seek to oppose Him. The story of Persia in the Bible is a story of unexpected twists and turns. From its ancient roots in the line of Japheth to its rise as a global empire under Cyrus, from the courage of Queen Esther to the prophetic visions of Daniel, Iran has been woven into the very fabric of God's plan for His people. It is a story that challenges us to see beyond the surface of history, to recognize that even the most powerful empires and the most humble individuals are part of a larger divine design. Persia's role in the Bible is not an accident. It is a testimony to the sovereignty of God, who uses all nations, all peoples, and all events to bring about His ultimate purpose. So the next time you read the Bible and encounter the name of Persia, remember, this ancient nation, so often overlooked, is a golden thread in the tapestry of God's redemptive plan, a thread that connects the past, present, and future in ways that are both mysterious and profound.